Welcome to Story Recap. Today, we're going to recap the story of the 2003 movie Bruce Almighty. One morning in Buffalo, reporter Bruce Nolan is filming a segment about a local bakery. Although he's unhappy with his work, he keeps a positive attitude and aims to showcase the bakery's largest cookie. When the cookie is baked, it breaks the city's record, making Bruce's story a hit. In celebration, everyone enjoys cookies while Bruce serves the guests. Later, Bruce goes over the story with his girlfriend Grace, who praises the piece and tries to encourage him, but Bruce doubts that these humorous segments will ever lead to his dream of becoming a news anchor. The next morning, Bruce begins his workday routine, but things quickly go awry. The news reports that his field hockey team lost their game, and soon after, his dog Sam makes a mess in the house. On top of that, he has to get to the newspaper office early for a meeting about the day's stories. Before heading there, he drops Grace off at her workplace, where a blood drive is being held. Grace mentions that helping others is important, especially since her blood type is rare. Bruce, however, isn't keen on the idea and says goodbye. Grace gives him a necklace made by her students for good luck, but it doesn't seem to help as Bruce ends up stuck in traffic. Arriving late at work, he finds that the meeting is over and the story chosen is about Evan Baxter, a rival reporter and Bruce's main competitor. They both vie for the anchor position, but Evan always seems to come out on top. Desperate, Bruce speaks with his supervisor and friend Jack, who gives him a chance to do a live report from Niagara Falls. Bruce agrees, and shortly afterward heads to the Maid of the Mist ship, which is celebrating its 100th anniversary. He gets ready to interview the ship's owner, but during the broadcast, the newspaper announces that its main anchor is resigning. To make matters worse, Evan volunteers to handle the farewell and even reveals that he will be the new anchor. As Bruce learns that his colleague has been promoted over him, he has a breakdown, sabotages the story, and loses his temper on the live show. Unsurprisingly, Bruce is fired, upset. He gathers his things and heads to his car, only to witness a homeless man being attacked by a gang. Bruce rushes to help, but the gang turns on him, chasing him down. Despite his efforts to escape, they catch up, beat him, and scratch his car door. Later, Bruce returns home and starts blaming God for all his problems. Grace tries to comfort him, but he won't accept her help and says he can't stand their mediocre life any longer. These words hurt Grace, but Bruce doesn't care and decides to leave the house to cool off. Minutes later, on the road, the reporter tries to ask God for a miracle with as much faith as he can muster. He takes the opportunity to pick up the amulet Grace gave him, but accidentally drops it in the car. Bruce tries to pick it up but doesn't pay attention to the road, and his car crashes into a lamppost, destroying the entire hood. Fortunately, Bruce wasn't hurt, but this accident became the last straw in his life. He then throws the necklace into the middle of the sea and starts taunting God, saying that he has abandoned him and that he doesn't do his job properly. Suddenly, his beeper starts ringing and shows a mysterious number, but Bruce just ignores it. The next day, he keeps getting calls from the same phone, which makes him lose his temper and throw the beeper out of the window into the street. As Sam goes back to pee in the house and Bruce takes him outside, to his surprise, he sees that the beeper is still ringing even though it's completely destroyed with the number that called prior. Confused by this, Bruce decides to answer the call and receives a very tempting job offer. He goes to the address, but finds an abandoned building in a strange alley. The place doesn't look too promising for him, and it gets even worse when Bruce gets distracted and steps in a mud puddle. Nevertheless, he decides to go ahead, and when he enters the building, he meets a janitor. The guy tells him to go up to the 7th floor, but first he asks Bruce to help him with the cleaning. Confused, the reporter just says that on the 7th at 7 o'clock he'll help him, and the janitor just agrees. Arriving on the 7th floor, Bruce finds an empty corridor where an electrician is fixing the light. However, the guy turns out to be the same man who used to work as a janitor. If that wasn't enough, in a matter of seconds he changes his uniform for a white suit and tie. Proving that he is also the owner of the place, Bruce finds the whole thing strange. But it gets worse when the mysterious man claims to know everything about his life, which is recorded in a cupboard in the living room. Curious, Bruce goes to the cupboard to investigate, but when he opens it, a gigantic drawer comes out and pushes him away. The man then takes one of the files and talks about the night before, when Bruce accused God of not doing his job. Frightened by all this, he asks who the mysterious man is, who replies that he is none other than God. Bruce finds this absurd and tries to prove that it's all a deception. He challenges God to guess how many fingers he has raised, but the Lord gets it right every time. In yet another attempt, Bruce cheats and puts on 7 fingers, but then changes to 5. But his hand gains 2 extra fingers, which sends him into a panic. After this scare, God makes Bruce an offer to have his powers for a week and prove that he can do God's work better than he can. Bruce agrees, but only to get out of the place as quickly as possible. He rushes towards the car and steps into the same puddle as before, only instead of sinking his foot in, he walks over the water. Bruce thinks it was all an invention in his head and gets into the car. He tries to start it with the key and can't. But when he commands it with his voice, the car suddenly starts. Still unable to believe what is happening, Bruce ends up in a diner. While waiting for his coffee, he decides to see if he really has God's powers. First, he pulls out the sugar jar with the power of his mind, and then manages to summon a spoon which comes out of his mouth. Finally, when the attendant brings him some soup, he uses his power to separate it just as Moses did with the Red Sea. At that moment, God appears before him and calls him to explain everything that has happened. As the two walk through the water, the Creator says that over the course of the week, Bruce will have all his powers. However, there are 2 conditions. He can't reveal to others that he is God, and he can't interfere with people's free will. Finally, God says goodbye and leaves his task for Bruce to fulfill. So with the powers of the Almighty, the reporter begins to test them out on the street and uses them to change his ordinary clothes for more elegant ones. However, his target is now the gang that beat him up the day before. He finally finds them in an alley and orders them all to apologize for the sin of attacking him. Not believing what they've heard, the whole gang starts laughing and the leader says he'll only ask for forgiveness if a monkey comes out of him. To his misfortune, Bruce complies and a monkey comes out of him. When they see this, the other members get scared and run for their lives, but Bruce shoots a swarm of bees out of his mouth to chase them. Before leaving, the all-powerful Bruce orders the monkey to return to where he came from, much to the subject's misfortune. As evening falls, Bruce heads home, determined to make amends with Grace. He arrives with flowers, plays romantic music, and uses his powers to clear the clouds and bring the moon closer to their window. This creates the perfect setting for them to reconcile and enjoy an unforgettable night together. The following morning, while Grace sips her coffee, she watches a news report about tsunamis hitting Japan. The report links the waves to an unusual movement of the moon, attributed to Bruce's actions the previous night. As Bruce sleeps, he starts hearing commanding voices in his head, but brushes them off. After having coffee with Grace, he sets out to reclaim his job at the newspaper. Outside, he gets into his dilapidated car and magically transforms it into a luxury vehicle. On his way, he encounters another traffic jam, but effortlessly clears the road with a snap of his fingers, speeding through. Minutes later, Bruce shows up at a dog training center, but a competing journalist has already captured the story and is making the most of their early arrival. However, the reporter uses his divine abilities, and at that moment, a dog begins digging in the field. After creating a large hole, the dog uncovers the missing body of a prominent figure in the US. When the news team sees the discovery, they rush to retrieve their equipment from the van, but Bruce locks the doors. With no rivals left, he grabs his camera and records this exclusive story. Additionally, he takes the opportunity to get back at the rival reporter. Bruce returns to the newsroom and gets his job back. But before recording the report, he suggests Jack do the anchoring. This makes his rival very angry, but while the recording is going on, Bruce uses his power to put phrases and catchwords in his mouth, making his story a complete mess. The boss ends up liking Bruce's story and gives him a promotion. Finally, the reporter manages to get a new office, and news about his new promotion comes quickly. On the way, Bruce hears voices again, which God clarifies are people's prayers, and the couple enjoys another romantic night together. The night going well until Bruce started to hear voices again and couldn't hide his discomfort. Grace notices and asks what's wrong, but her boyfriend only says he needs to go to the bathroom and leaves her. Once outside, Bruce takes a look at the prayer requests that were bothering him and decides to answer them all at once. Grace becomes angry at being left behind and accuses Bruce of being selfish and not caring about her. Bruce tries to apologize, but Grace says that she wants to get married and have children. But he only thinks about his job and leaves the celebration. Later, Bruce sees that the requests have returned and that everything he has done has had an adverse effect. The people who made the requests are now completely frustrated, as none of their prayers have been answered correctly. After hearing this, Bruce realizes that it is his duty to help people in need and decides to use his powers to grant their wishes. He begins to help people with their problems. He stops a woman from committing suicide and helps a homeless man find a job. However, the more Bruce tries to help, the more problems he encounters. The world becomes chaotic, and Bruce realizes that he cannot handle the responsibilities of being God. He returns to the building where he met God and begs for his help. God tells Bruce that he has always been with him and that he must learn to rely on his own abilities. Bruce realizes that he must accept his limitations and ask for help when he needs it. He decides to make amends with Grace and his colleagues. He returns to the news station and reconciles with Evan. Bruce starts focusing on making people laugh with his stories. He finally repairs his relationship with Grace by showing genuine effort and understanding, realizing that true miracles come from love and kindness. Bruce's life returns to normal, and he appreciates the simple things in life. He learns that happiness comes from within, and that he is responsible for his own destiny. In the end, Bruce is back to being a reporter, but he is happier and more content with his life. He has learned valuable lessons about love, responsibility, and the power of faith. And while he no longer has divine powers, he has gained a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. Thanks for tuning into Story Recap. If you enjoyed our recap, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more recaps. Don't forget to ring the bell icon to stay updated on our latest uploads. Have a movie you want us to cover? Drop your suggestions in the comments below. Until next time, keep watching.